Okay, well, I said we're going to start at 5 and this cuts us off after a certain time, so let's not hang about. And as and when other people join us, we're going to go in. So looking for a reason to do these little sessions, and I thought, well, today let's just make it interactive, let's make it a bit of fun, and hence the pub motif. So don't know if anyone can see that, but cheers y'all. And I thought, well, if I'm asking people for images to critique, then I'm going to put up a few of my own first of all, because what any critique session should be is an opportunity to share some love and share some passion for the images, not just stick the boot in and call everybody an arse, which I do feel is sometimes the way these things go. And a lot of people give critique in inverted commas and actually end up destroying people if they're not careful. So thank you to those who've submitted me pictures. We will go through some towards the end of the session. I thought I'll go through a few things and show you a few of the things that I do wrong as a matter of course, and perhaps why I shoot the way I shoot, etc, etc. So let's start off with this being one of the very first pictures that I shot of Carwyn when she came for a test shoot at the Ark. It's a natural light image. You can see I'm there with my back to the windows, light flooding through, white walls all around, and a very simple image. Now, looking at that, I like the picture. I focused on the back eye rather than this eye. So this one is a little bit blurred. This one is in focus, but I can live with that. That's how I shoot quite often, and I don't really mind that. But while I'm shooting these first images, I'm looking at her face and thinking her whole expression is just a little bit frozen, just a little bit stilted. She's looking at me quite concernedly. I know the angle of the eyes doesn't help that. Whenever you've got the eye in the corner here, you've got a little bit too much white coming over this side, and it just looks a little bit, what's happening? So the angle of the eyes doesn't help, but she's quite tight in the mouth, in the jawline here. So let's see if we can move. So I changed the angle a little bit, and we've still just got this little pursing of the lips here. See that little bit of tension here that just takes away from it being the perfect portrait. She's listening and she's doing all the things I'm talking to her about. See, her lips are slightly parted. She's putting her tongue up into the roof of the mouth, just breathing through the lips slightly, which is starting to ease that jawline off. But still, we've just got that little bit of tension in the face, that little bit of, well, it's quite natural. This was her first shoot ever. I need to take that away. So we dick about. We do what we do on a Monkeys shoot. Dave put up a picture today from Monkey Fest 2002 or whatever it was, years ago, with Devon in the old milking parlour at the farm, and we laughed that weekend. It was a bloody good weekend. So here, to break the spell, to break the ice, to break the jawline, take that tension away, I dicked about. We got a giggle. We got a grin. We got some nice pictures. I love these, but look at the difference between that little face and this one, where we're trying to do a fashion pose and it's just coming back a bit too serious. That is a much more natural image, and that, when we come into fashion pose again, is much more relaxed. We've got the mouth just slightly wider because the jaw's more relaxed. That's revealing the teeth just coming through here, and that for me is a much stronger image than that, which is a beautiful picture, but it's just a little bit tense. And it's when you start to read these body clues in the models of the subjects you work with, you start to understand which is a better picture, why some pictures resonate more strongly. Now, a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about are not rules for photography, and this is what baffles people. This is what upsets photographers. Why are there no rules? Why do people use the word like when they're doing critique? Well, there are rules, and you shouldn't use the word like when you're doing a critique, because I don't give a toss whether you like my images or not, really. I'm shooting for me, and if I like it, then that's good enough. But there are things you can criticise. For instance, in this one, I've been slightly negligent in this little bit of hair sticking out the side here. That should have been cloned out. That should have been got rid of. It's a distraction. There's another one coming down from the edge of her ear here. So it's not a perfect image. There's a lot I could do to make that image better, but overall, for me, it's a much stronger one than the earlier images I showed you. Likewise, the colour version. Here, I've taken out that strand of hair, I've taken out that little tuft of hair, That's not distracting from the eyes. You've got that relaxed jawline, and it's a much stronger portrait than the ones previously for all those reasons. Okay. If there's any questions on any of this as we go along, feel free just to either unmute yourself and ask away. We haven't got a massive crowd joining us today, so no problem in doing that. Or if you want to just drop a message into the group chat, then I'll see that as we go along. Okay, so moving on. This was the next sequence that I shot with Carrie. And you see, we've got glorious natural light. I bang on about it each and every time, but this is window light with a black V flat behind, and it produces this most exquisite of light. And I just absolutely adore this, and the whole colour pattern, blue jeans and white t-shirt and white vest top with the red hair, with the golden skin tone and the blue eyes. So the black V flat gives it a lot of contrast and a lot of richness. Now we've had a change of outfits and we've gone back to this slightly clamped jawline again. So I know that I've got to shoot a sequence and just bring her through the same little processes. It'll be much quicker this time because we've done it once. So we can get her moving. Now as we get her moving, I'm seeing that when she's got free range of her shoulders, initially she's hunched up a little bit. See how the shoulders have come up, the neck's come up, and we've got this tension around the neckline and this slightly shortened neckline and tensed shoulders. So we play around with that. We talk about pose a little bit. I inject and start to direct a little bit, and I give her something to do with her hands. Because she puts her hands up into her hair, the whole body stretches up. She's reaching up physically, and that stretches everything out, takes all that hunching away, and we get a nice funky image as a result, with a nice bit of attitude. I love putting my camera on the tilt, tilting the camera for these portraits so she's more on diagonal. If this was a landscape, you'd have a tilted horizon, and everybody would go, oh, you can't shoot horizons like that. Well, yeah, bollocks, we're not doing that. We're shooting fashion, we're shooting funk. So putting it on that little tilt and twist. So by looking at the shadow, the shoulders, that's giving me the indication for pose, and we get a much stronger image as a result. Always looking for what your models are trying to do, trying to interact with them. Looking for distractions in there, and looking for what works and what doesn't work. Normally, people would say, don't shoot from underneath a model. You can look up their nostrils. Well, yeah, you can a little bit. I don't mind that, because there's a strength in that connection with the eyes. She's looking strong. She's looking down her nose at you slightly, and you're feeling that you're looking up at this superior being. And I have no problem in that, in representing my models as strong women. Okay. Light and shade, light and shade, light and shade. It's some of the hardest light to play around with. And when you come to arc and the sun is shining, we'll play around with this sort of light a lot. Now, this was one of the first images I took in this set, and it's a case of positioning Carrie so that the key areas of her are in the highlights, and then areas I'm not so bothered about are in the shadows. And so there's a lot of going left and right, until we can just get the pose exactly where we want it. Here, we've almost got rim light down the edge of her face, and I just felt that that wasn't really exploring the best light on her face. We trimmed it a little bit on the pose. I moved it slightly to the left. I included this light deliberately to see how it would work, and it didn't work. That for me just lacks everything. This is just a distraction with the wall end and this golden light here, because it's obviously not contributing to the exposure. So that was unnecessary. And actually by moving her here, the light is way too strong in these glasses and makes for a huge distraction. My eye is sort of ping-ponging between here and here and here and here. And I don't like that feeling. It feels disconcerting, unsettling. I want a much more settled image. And so we went back to turning the head and getting the best light down the face, onto the chest, and keeping that gorgeous shadow in behind her. So sometimes you just got to play with the sequence and try and critique your own images as you go along. That may work better as a portrait crop. I haven't tried it because I love this shadow. This shadow was everything in this shot to me. I really, really like it, and I think it makes for a much stronger image. So it was turning the head away, so we didn't get the highlights in the glasses that made for the more impact, and keeping as much of that shadow in as possible, whilst keeping a little bit of light and space on this side. I didn't want her to be right up to this side of the frame and just looking out of the camera, because again, that would have been quite unsettling. It may have looked quite monsterish, whereas I wanted it to be more of a relaxed girl in the sunshine, just enjoying that time with the sun on her. Okay, we move on. Initially, I was stood to camera right. I moved round to my own camera left, and now I'm looking directly at her. My back is to the window, and I'm on a 50mm lens here, so we've got quite a lot of width, and I can frame it up with this light in the background. The light coming through the window is intense sunshine, late afternoon, so it's quite orange in nature. The light behind her is just shaded street light, so it's a lot cooler by comparison, and that's what's producing that beautiful orange teal sort of effect. Now again, it's playing around with the catch lights in the sunglasses. Just minor movements of the head can produce huge differences in the way those catch lights in the sunglasses resonate. Which one's your favourite? Probably for me, it's the ones with the smaller catch lights. That one works much better for me because you're not totally distracted by the bright sunshine glare in the sunnies. Really subtle impact on that one. So we've moved quite a long way from where we initially started to get to that image. And yet I think that works stronger as a fashion image, because now you're concentrating on the lingerie, you've got the tattoo, and the legs just disappearing on that tilt again. Because who wants that image in a straight setup? It will be boring. It deserves a little bit of an angle. Here also, we're getting the bottom of the wall in play here. So we've got little bits of white appearing where they don't need to be. And that, in a perfect image, I would take out, probably cropping more across the knee rather than just below the knee, as we have here. Here, we're cropping at the vanishing point of the thighs, just where the legs cross. That's much more flattering on the angle and just gives a more interesting read. Here, we're cropping about the same point, and again, just giving that nice read through the image, triangular composition, and I like that one a lot better. Okay. Now, I've forgotten the point I was going to make on these ones. What was the point I was going to make? Ah, yes. Sometimes when you've got a rock chick, you've just got to let them rock out. So this is Becca on her shoot. And Becca's test shoot was quite strange in a way, because we did it at night and it was pitch black. I'm so used to having natural light in the studio that to do an entire test shoot under lights was quite tricky. Now, I wanted her to be relaxed and I wanted her to be able to express herself as she expresses herself normally. And so I put together this very broad lighting. So all we've got is a big softbox directly on axis to her, pointing straight at her and blasting light into this whole area. Okay, so we've got light coming over the whole area. I've got a black D flat just on the camera right, which is just blocking a little bit of light and giving that bit of shadow down the right hand side as I look at her face and body. That's good because it just adds that little bit of definition. But because I've got the softbox right back, she's got a lot of latitude to move backwards and forwards with just a white wall behind her. And so she can rock out. We can play around and I can see what poses she would pull if I let her roll on her own. And she produces some fantastic poses. Here though, because the light isn't truly on axis, it's just slightly off to camera left, she's turning her head away and producing a bit too strong a nose shadow. If you're looking at that as Rembrandt lighting, I've kind of missed. It's a little bit betwixt and between for me. I'd prefer the nose to be about an inch to camera left, just to soften that nose shadow and bring it in the line of the nose. Now, does that work as an image? Would that work as her album cover? Would you see it on the front page of Vogue? Possibly so, because most people wouldn't even recognise that. But if you're looking at Rembrandt lighting, if you're thinking, should I put that into some sort of competition, whatever, I would say that is too strong a no shadow, and it's a distraction, and therefore it's not a perfect picture. But is it a good portrait? Yeah, it's intense. You look at it and you can't help but engage with the lass. Hands up to hair. I'm not always a great fan of hands up to hair. It looks like she's having a crisis. It looks like she's having a bit of distress. It looks like she's got a headache. Well, that's fine. I don't mind that, because that's what she was playing around at. So let it go, let it ride. And like the pictures earlier with Carwin, if you're doing it for a reason, make sure you know what that reason is before hands start to go up to heads, up to necks, and all that sort of thing. Very difficult to pose them, make them look good in that sort of scenario, I always feel. Here, again, we've got the hand up to the face. It's masking the face. It is some sort of distress. Look at that angle of the eye. There's hardly any light going into that eye. There's hardly any detail there whatsoever. And yet, with the eye just appearing through the hair that's straggled over the face, the fact that she's bare-chested with just the jacket draped over her, it all adds an element for storytelling, and it all looks realistic. And the hands up there for a reel. Get my teeth in. Hand is up there for a reason. One critique that you will often hear is don't show the back of the hand to camera. Always have your hands bladed. Always have them slightly turned so you're not showing this full back of the hand to the camera. Well, here I feel it kind of works. I don't mind that because it's part of a story. If she moved her hand back on her head, it would pull the hair back and it would stop falling over her face like that, and it would be an entirely different image. So because of the hair, I don't mind the hand, and so we work it from there. Pulling the hand back on the head, you see, produces a much stronger dynamic. The hair's pulled back off the face. Now she can let this one drop, and we're working through that series of images. I love shooting a series of images because then it makes you work in your post-production, because you have to look at them and think, which ones do I want to work on? Which ones do I want to reproduce? Well, here I would say all of these have a strength. All of them have something worth keeping. And we've said with Becca, she does actually play in a band. I've said, well, when she produced her first solo album, these ones are going to be the cover, because if this was a rock goddess, these would be iconic shots. So much attitude going on, so much good stuff. Okay, sometimes you have to give your models a corral, i.e. tie them down to one spot, and a way of expending energy just to burst it out of them. Becca won't mind me saying, but she just had a full day of work at a day job, and she came bursting with creative energy. She wanted to dance. She really wanted to rock out that night. And I just needed her on this little lighting setup just to control it a little bit. And so I stood her on a box, because she couldn't move the right lot if she stood on a box. Now, she didn't realise that's why I was standing her on a box. She thought this was her stage to perform on. But I knew that it would keep her in one bloody place, so I wasn't having to work so hard and chase around the studio to get the shot. So it works great until you realise that they're just galumphing around, playing about, and eventually they're going to fall off themselves. So go with the flow. If your model wants to rock out and you want to produce a perfect finite portrait, you might not be able to do it. It's the same as shooting kids, dogs. It's the same as sort of running the horses. You go in with a plan one day, you can't work that plan because they just don't want to do it. So rather than shout and bawl and get too stroppy, you've just got to change your plan and go with the flow. And you might just get an image that's a real keeper. I just love this attitude, this gawky stance. It's weird, it's wonderful, but it's her, and it says so much about her. And I just love that little series, even when she falls off. So it's all good. Okay, let's just think a little bit about other elements of critique. If you've seen some of the videos I've been doing recently, I did one where I removed a lot of street furniture from this shot because it upset me. In the final image, I think I also took this out and this little spike here, because they just tear your eye away. But why did I position Carrie where I positioned her? Well, the answer really is yes, it's nice and central, and I've just had to adjust my position to keep her central. But more than anything, it was picking the moment for this bit of cloud. See how she fits totally into the brightest part of the image. Now, ideally, I would have liked to have fitted her here, so her legs were here at this low point, and then her head in this high point of the cloud space. But that wasn't possible, so I had to work around, fiddle around, and this was the best alternative I could come up with. So that the brightest part of the images is dragging your eye in towards her. You're not able to look anywhere else but here to start with. It's almost impossible even to look here where there's a big distraction, or over here where there's a car, because you're drawn here by the light, by the converging shapes of the buildings, and by the light on the subject here. So if you've got clouds, if you've got sky, if this was a shrubs or something like that, pick your spot. Put her in the brightest area so that everything else acts as a natural vignette and draws your eye in to your subject. That way you're going to have to do a lot less work in post-production, and it makes the viewer just look exactly where you want them to look. You can see in this one, again, the shape of the clouds. It's a windy day, so the clouds are scudding around, moving about, and here it's just moved off the top of her head a little bit, but it shows how it's framing her up within this bright space, and then we're just putting her where we want her and working around her. Okay, 2 examples shot sequentially. In the first one, I put a center of the frame, got the exposure, and took the image. It's window lit, this really strong sunlight coming through the back here, and I've got 2 white V-flats, one either side of me, and I'm just shooting through the narrow gap in the middle, and they're powering the light back in. And you can see, because it's got that kind of crispness that you get from reflected lights like that, which is slightly unnatural looking, but it really works on these portraits. Now, I quite like this, and I was umming and ahhing then about my composition, and my favourite picture then was just moving her sideways. Here, it just looks a bit too static, a bit too perfect, a bit too central. Putting her off to one side, we've got the light coming across, you're reading across the image, and she's almost like the full stop at the end of a sentence. For absolute perfection, it's a shame that I've got the radiator appearing there between the legs. If I could, I might have wanted to isolate her against this orange brickwork. The radiators, again, just a little bit of a distraction for perfection. Difficult one to get rid of in post-production, but possible if I really wanted to keep the image. Or I may just say, you know what, it's a funky fashion picture, I don't care, I'll keep it in there. But playing around there, again, just too central. There, I like the flow of the image much better. That's definitely a one that comes down to personal preference though. Where do you think the most dynamic image is? Where do you think you get a wow factor? Where do you look at your work and go, my word, did I take that? Because if you can do that to your own work, then you know you're doing something right. Okay, we had Carrie just sit on this window in the upstairs studio. The light here is really weird compared to the downstairs studio in that it's not as strong, it's a bit more directional, and it just does funny things, whereas downstairs it's very manageable because it's just a bit more muted. So here you see it's very strong on this side of her face and a little bit weaker here. So I had to keep a nose roughly on this axis here so I could get the diamond triangular pattern just under her eye here, which is your Rembrandt V. If I'd have turned her any more this way, that shadow would have crept across. We'd have the same troubles as we saw in the picture of Becca. Her eyes would have been more centrally placed. Again, she's put them right over into the corners to look at me, and we've just got that little edge of slyness going on. So I was umming and ahhing. I like the pose. The distraction for me is here, where it looks like she's singing into a microphone, and she's about to do something with this because it looks like it's actually in her hands. So I could get rid of that. But instead, I moved my position and got a slightly different picture. Now again, we've got the window handle coming into play. We've got this big knot in the woods here, which I might consider taking out. but we've got a much more relaxed image by shooting along the wall. And then over accentuating that, I pull back another step from there. So we've got the corner of the next window in, then we've got the sweep of the wall, then we've got Carrie, and now the wood actually looks much more natural and acts as a full stop to the image with this lovely flow through these sequences of colour. You can't actually tell what these are. Nobody's going to look and think, oh, that's the corner of a window and the wall. It's just a little bit strange, and then you've got the subject, and then you've got the colours. And always looking at the colours in the colour wheel. I knew when I shot this that I wanted to retouch it in a golden format, bring out the gold in her skin, the gold in her hair, and then the blue creating that really complementary colour tone. A little bit of pink there, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of gold again. But it's those rich, warm colours that truly make the image. Posing wise, always something to watch out for when you've got hand under a chin. Spoken a little bit about hand placement before. This, okay for me, maybe fingers a little bit more relaxed, maybe just tilt the fingers away from the camera a touch so it's not a straight L shape, maybe just push them back. But I'm working with the model and really letting her pose around here and just recording the bits that I like. This hand, in preference, possibly disappear it so it's not appearing in shot, or cup the elbow is always the easier option. Bring that hand up just to cup the elbow on this side, and that creates a more natural line. Here it's just appearing out in shot, and this odd little thumb shape is a bit of a no-no. Okay, playing around with light, not just playing around with the light, but playing around with the fabric on these. Here we've got the fabric very much under tension, so it's taken out a lot of the wrinkles over her body and her face. It's really just appearing as a bit of a hat on this side, and then this long veil which isn't distracting too much from the body. We released a bit of the tension in the next shot and see how it wrinkles up, and straight away you've got different distractions coming down the face. Now both of these for me lovely images. I have no problem with either of these, and they're cropped again right to the point where the thighs meet. They've got the face pretty much rim lit going into the light coming through the window here. We've put a bit of smoke into the room, so that's just hanging in the air, and these panes of glass here produce these radial beams of light naturally, so we're not having to work too hard to achieve those. It's not been photoshopped. This is how it comes through the windows, and I love these looks. But it just shows that small things, taking the tension out of the fabric, can create a little bit of a different look because you get additional ripples, which is picked up by this very hard light. Okay, I'm going to move quickly because we've got 10 minutes and I want to get into the images that have been submitted. Eye lines. Here we've got her looking up. I wanted a little bit of a sort of Supergirl sort of feel to this image. Here we've got her looking directly at camera. Same outfit, same lass, same lighting. This I feel is a much stronger image. Typically if you're shooting an art nude image, you'd say don't look at the camera because you're not making a connection, you're a dispassionate lump of art. Here I love that. She's looking straight at the camera. She's again that strong independent woman, and I really love the strength that shows. But she's totally confident in this lingerie outfit. Posing. So many elements in here had to be corrected for and taken out. Lots of wrinkles in the background. There's a little video on the blog if you're interested in how we retouched this. But 3 different poses. Which one do you think works best? I would always go for the classic simplicity. It's very balletic pose, the pointed toes, the feet meeting up, showing the tattoo off as a prime piece of the artwork, and then the catch lights in the eyes and the richness of the skin tone. Here, just looks a little bit more disjointed, as though she's a broken doll and she's fallen, rather than that balletic diagonal pose. And although the pose is very similar here, it just looks, again, just a little bit more awkward where she's rolled onto the side and we've just got the light in her eyes here. Oop, just saw that, Dave. You're a fan of the second one? Okay. So a broken doll pose, leg coming over. It's cool. Splaying the hair out. Because she's got great hair, it just picked up on the highlights here and it just shone out of the dark background. Okay. Oh, this is all about elbows. Here we've got the elbow pointing straight at the camera. Looks a bit odd. Looks like just a very straight arm. Doesn't work. Elbow bent but pointing up at the camera. Well, the fingers are intersecting with the head now. We've got a little bit of distraction and weirdness going on here, and this elbow looks very large compared to the size of the body. Here, that one, classic pose of putting the hand onto the waistline, pulling the elbow back. That puts the arm under tension and just pushes the elbow away from the camera slightly. If we'd wanted to, we could have turned that hip more towards the camera, brought that foot round. That would have pushed the elbow even further back and trimmed this down. Eye connection. Here, she's looking at the camera. Here, the eyes are closed. There, she's looking away. There, I've dipped the angle down and asked her to arch her back. This, for me, shows working through that series. I've got a nice image here. I like it. Okay, now we're getting there. Now we're getting there. Now I really arch into the pose. And that, for me, produces the strong image. Work through the series. Don't just take what you're given. Don't think I've got to move on. I've got to move on. Keep considering what you're doing. Do your critique within camera if you possibly can. First shot of this sequence, I looked at this and you see where the gel has come around the edge of her face here, and just onto the edge of the nose. I knew then that I had to either march her forwards or turn the face a little bit and do something about the way this blue gel was falling onto her face. So I turned her whole body and got a much stronger image as a result. There, the blue is just turning the face into a smurf. Here, it's just giving that odd little highlight, funky little highlight, highlights down here, and bouncing off the polythene. Okay, I'm gonna just zap through some of these now because I just want to get to some bits of buns because we're probably going to get punched off in about 6 minutes. Okay, I said before, hands into head can give you a little bit of anguish in your image. Well, here it's done for a reason. The artist has obviously decided that because we've got this anguished girl, then we've got an anguished pose. We've got the head bent way down. That's producing this big whites under the eyes, which again tells its own story. It can look incredibly sensual, or in this case, it can look slightly deranged. That's enhanced by the makeup. So all these elements have been chosen for a reason. I talked before about I'd take away a wisp of hair on a picture of Carwyn that was distracting from the image. Here, the wisps of hair make the image. If her hair was perfect, it would look ridiculous. She is a wild child. She's having an aggression moment. She's having a breakdown moment, whatever it is. It's working and there's a strength in the image and it's all coming through. The hand is reaching straight out to camera. Now, this is a very dramatic way of shooting. And I'm guessing this was taken with a little bit of flash to produce this full whiteness around here, or you've got strong sunlight because it's fairly sharp across all these elements. What I would say to maximize the impact of this image, were you to shoot it again or similar, knock your aperture down so the eyes and the face are sharp. This starts to fade out with even stronger depth of field impact. So it's slightly blurred, blurred, getting stronger, sharp, blurred around. It's shot high key in that it's very white. Some may say it would suit a darker scenario, putting some flash in, perhaps from the back left, pushing forward. So a little bit like those images of Carrie stood up. She's in a little shaft of light and all this is darkening down around and really focusing your attention on this very angry soul and angry individual. I love the way that all the elements come together to tell the story, from the tattoos to the bits on the fingers to everything. It's great. Beautiful use of soft light, beautiful use of monochrome conversion. It's a very soft image, ring flash obviously being used, perhaps even enhanced a little bit with a softbox. maybe a V flat on this left hand side, because you've got a nice bit of shadowing down the edge here, a nice even light around here. So the retouching matches the general feel, this nice triangular composition. The one thing that jars my eye, right in this bottom right corner, you've got a wee black bit, that may be a mole, maybe a bit of a shirt that she was wearing or anything like that. I'll just clone that out and take that off, just to make consistent the flow of the skin. But a really nice image, and the retouching really suits the nature and the mood that you're trying to convey. Had that had any more contrast, had that been made even punchier or anything like that, you'd have lost that feel. So I really like the flow, the little bit of vignetting that goes around the picture. Okay, just 1 second, because there's a couple more in that sequence I want to find. Just wait while I find these pictures. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. There we go. Okay, is that still being shared? Yeah, let me just check. Share screen. Photos, there we go. Okay, we're back. Hi. Said last time that it was a nice soft black and white conversion. Here we've got a real contrasty, strong monochrome conversion, which again suits the nature of the image, and this strong pose, and fantastic dynamic pose, very symmetrical. 2 lights, I'm guessing, used, one from either side. I'm doing this live, by the way. I deliberately haven't looked at these pictures beforehand. I really wanted to react to them as I saw them, and I'm liking the light across the hair here for absolute perfection. A little bit more detail in the hair around here, just on my little screen. It's probably because it's a small image. This is condensed into a very dark area, so a little bit more of this beautiful highlighting in the hair. But yeah, gorgeous pose, very symmetrical, very brave one to shoot, and you need a lot of trust between subject and model to get them into that sort of position. Fantastic. Okay, said before about putting your subject into the brightest part of the image. Now here, we've got a lot of distraction here with the road signs and the bits and pieces in the background that just ping pong your eye a little bit around this corner. Leading lines are good. The little knobbles in the wall, yep, that's the shallow depth of field effect working there that we talked about before. The face has just come out a little bit bright on my monitor, which is making this eye just look a little bit odd, in that you've got a very bright area here and then a very dark area in here, and so it almost looks a little bit sort of like a half eye. So this area of the face probably just a little bit overexposed. Love the angle of the face and the angle of the light to the subject. Nailed that beautifully, because you've got that nose shadow going right down the inside of the nose, highlighting the eye around here, little V of light coming down here for absolute perfection. Perhaps even just pull the eye a foot back towards the camera, drift a little bit more light in here. But hoods are absolute pains to get light into, and you've lit that great with the light coming all around the hood. But it's just that little bit of eye there and the brightness of this area of the face. Maybe even, I know you want to do it against the wall, I'm guessing, but possibly consider just walking 6 inches that way so that she was positioned and blocking these road signs. Okay, what's happened here? Have we run out of pictures? No. Let's get another one up. That's why I won't do it. Okay, Funky Studio Portrait. We talked about cropping. We talked about putting a twist on images. And here we're twisting like it was last summer. And it's all looking good. You've got a bit of flow in the hair. So there's a dynamic there straight away, which is echoed by the pose. She's looking very much off camera. That can work. And the question would then be, what's she looking at? There's no clues here. It's very much a studio portrait. It's nice, but I feel a connection with camera would be a bit more sassy and a bit more saucy here, because it's a very funky pose. You're wanting that strong, confident woman. It almost suggests she was looking at somebody else or something else happening over in this corner, whereas with that exact pose and the nose just coming around here and giving you a full-on hello boys down the camera would be even stronger to really engage with the camera. But lovely light around the face, get my cheekbone shadows in there, neck just slightly condensed, just hunching a little bit, just pushing that neck up would make for an even stronger portrait. But that connection with camera, I think on this one would just make it out of that world. Okay, how are we doing for time? 17:42. We haven't been kicked off yet. Any questions with anything that we're going through at the moment? Any questions?
No.
Okay. Must be saying something right, or we've bored everybody. Either way, we'll stick with it. Let me just stop that for a second. Yes, I know. And let's come back to this one. And go on to that one, and that one, and that one. Share screen, thank you. There, we're back. Okay. So here we've got a nice reflection shot, lit presumably by the light from inside the room or the shop or the building or whatever it was. Very sort of Christmassy, festive theme to it. This is a little bit like the image that I shot with Carwyn in the studio, where you've got to look at every element and think, is it on a spot where I want it to be? The only real things that bug me here, something that was probably put there by design, and that's the big rock of a ring. I don't think it needs that big a ring in the shot. It's a distraction from what for me should be the main point, which is this beautiful connection of the eyes. Then you've got this blob of blue on one of the eyes reflections. Had that not been there, you might have just got a little bit of catch light in the eye there, and that would have made for a much stronger image, I believe. Nice pose, nice angle of the face to get the light coming through the window, but always consider the jewellery. I'm guessing this was, chosen by the model or the photographer, and I thought, brilliant, 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 love it. Yeah, I do. I'm not sure that this is the image to show it off in. Plus, if you've got something like a hat in the image, then get the peak of the hat in if you possibly can. Here, because it's cropped off, it just leaves you wanting to see the top of it. Her eyes are very much up in the image. This is one where I feel the rule of thirds would have been better engaged, or the golden spiral. That would have moved her down in the frame a little bit. It would have cropped then probably across the bottom of the elbow a little bit, and not so much of the tummy coming into the shot, which is a bit unnecessary really in the frame. The main impact is this area here, and making that the strength of the image would make it a much stronger image overall. Lovely glamour shot, shot somewhere hot by the looks of things. Again, for the cropping, I would say look where you're going to crop and use natural lines. We've cropped across the top of the hands, which means they're missing. We've cropped across the bottom of the stocking, which means that's missing. And just the little shadow coming off the stocking top here just adds a little dimple in here, which sort of distracts from the line of the leg. Got a little bulge in the corset top there. And it's just little elements like that that make a distraction from the beautiful light across here and the beautiful toning put into the image. But also, if you possibly can, look at extending the safety rail here, so we get rid of these little features at the end. You could use content aware scale for that, do a selection down here, content aware scale, and just drag those off to one side, and that should do a good job of getting rid of those little elements that just act as a little eye grabber when really you need to be looking here. Okay, cool image of a swimwear image shot out on a very rocky shore. Subject is very central in the frame and shot pretty much from her own eye line. Talking about making people into a strong image here, a strong woman, I would always go for a lower vantage point if I possibly could. That would then put the horizon line down a central mass or even down her thighs, and you'd get a much stronger, more dominant look. If I've got all this foreground detail in here, then I would consider using that as a feature for the image, coming out wider, getting some of this shadow in into the frame as well, and showing a little bit more of the context. Every element needs to add something. What is this little bit adding? It's not adding a lot, whereas it could be a nice feature. As it is, it just means that fingers are just intersecting with this bit of rock and making for a little bit of a distraction. But otherwise, confident expression, hand in the hair, just pull that elbow back a little bit, but confident look, good stance, and like the fact that you've got nice balance of light across the central mass of the body and the background to give some detail in that sky. Okay. Beautiful mix out and about in these what looks like Christmas lights. It's certainly got a very festive feel to it. It's looking cold in the big furry coat there. Here, the big rock isn't quite such a distraction. It's almost echoed by the chunky earrings and the orange lippy. In an image like this, she needs to be the brightest part of the picture. This needs to act as a vignette and guide you into the whole story. Here, she looks a little bit underexposed and her hands are very much different colours, which tells its own story of it being quite a cold day, but it's something that you need to either amend in Photoshop or react to on the day and find some gloves for the lass to even up the colour temperatures in the hands there. This one's looking very cold, this one's looking very red and chapped. A little bit more lighting on the face for absolute perfection. I do like the over the shoulder pose, quite naturalness to it. It's almost like a voyeuristic moment. Perhaps for a voyeuristic moment, if you can, pull a little bit back and just give a little bit more shape around this side of the image and above, so that she's looking into a little bit of space, which gives a much stronger flow to the picture. As here, she's quite central again and tight to the side of that cropping. Okay, I think we're pushing it for time, so I'm just going to leave you with one of my favourite models of recent times. Talked about cropping centrally. Yeah, he's central, but then it couldn't move a little bugger because he was only moving for biscuits. Talked about distractions. He's got his paw rammed into the fabric here, but does it make me, want to cuddle him? Yeah, because he's my dog and we think the world of him. So sometimes full strength of an image isn't about the long hairs dripping down from his face, the little distractions here, the little distractions there, the lack of depth of field down here, the lack of detail in the hair. The true strength of the image is, does it make you go, oh? And if it does, you know you've shot a good picture. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Just check the messages, is there any more come through? If anybody's got any feedback afterwards, feel free to send it through. If anybody's got some more images they want to have a look at, then we'll do this all again another time. Who knows how long this lockdown's going to go on for? It may end tonight, or it may have gone for another 16 years. Who knows? But more than anything, let's all stay talking, and we'll come out of it, and we'll all have a bit of photography time and a beer down in Birmingham. So thanks everybody who submitted pictures. Really brave of you. I hope it's made sense. It's all done in spirit of love and support, and again, just thank you for being brave enough to put yourself up there. Thanks everybody who's joined in, and we'll see you again. Love and light, over and out. Cheers, boys. Bye.